So on Hoya Lab and looking at my account, I've officially had my Genshin account for 1,000 days active. A lot of people do ask about my account, so maybe now's the perfect time to do an account review. First of all, I thought you might be interested in how I got into Genshin and how I started playing this account. Firstly, this isn't actually my first account. I started on PlayStation 4 first, and I didn't actually know about Genshin before it came out. I think about 3 or 4 days into the game's launch, I was watching a streamer 39daf on Twitch, and I believe she got sponsored to play Genshin, and it looked pretty cool. I remember her gliding around with Noelle, and it looked quite interesting. So I started playing the game on PlayStation 4. This did work out well because it was a free-to-play game, and I was looking for a game at the time. So I was playing that PlayStation account for I think a couple days. But if you remember, PlayStation 4 was on 30 FPS, so the performance was quite bad. I remember getting Venti as my first 5-star. But the thing is, what I realized is that you couldn't play crossplay. And the PC version of the game was 60 FPS and it looks a lot better. And in the future, it could be easy for me to record gameplay. And a lot more people were playing on PC. And so luckily, I realized pretty quickly that I needed to ditch that account and start a PC account. So I made a new account on PC and I believe I started playing on the 10th of October. So that's about almost 2 weeks into the game. I think my first few characters were like Razor and Chi was my first 5-star. And funny enough, I actually ended up getting Venti quickly into this account too. I also managed to clear the Abyss fairly quickly, I would say. I was also free to play at the time. I still have some screenshots saved as I was progressing through the Abyss. Obviously, I wasn't a content creator at the time, but you can see here, this was the first sort of teams I was using. It was a Klee team and then it was a Razor team. After that, I remember I started buying the Welkin and Battle Pass, and I also ended up getting my first 36-star in the Abyss around the time of Albedo's banner, so 1.2. Just on that, around 2.0, I stopped buying the Battle Pass because I figured there was no real point for me. I didn't really care about the weapons or the resources. So ever since Inazuma, I've just been buying the Welcome Moon. So that was just a basic introduction into my account. Hopefully some of you found that interesting. Now I can get into some of my characters. So the first proper main I got on my account was Klee. You can see I got her on the 6th of November. To be honest, I kind of just got her. I wasn't necessarily going for her, but I was just putting on the banner. I definitely didn't mind getting her though, but I didn't expect to get her, especially because I just got Venti before. But Klee is still one of my favourite characters in the game, even after almost 3 years now. This is what my build looks like on her. It's pretty good, you'll see. Usually in the overworld and the Abyss, I use her on Lost Prayer, mostly because of the movement speed buff. It lets her jump around and run around a lot faster, which is very convenient in the overworld. You can also do like rolls like this, but I've also got the Widsis for her, which I use in speedruns. This is almost 250 CV then, I guess. I've got on Shimonars and Crimson Witch. Obviously some of these pieces are pretty strong. Constellations 0 and Triple Crowned. You'll see later I pretty much triple crown all my favourite characters, or at least double crown them if they're supports. I'm very happy with her new skin. Like I said, I play her a lot. She's still one of my favourite characters to this day, both like gameplay wise and design wise, and I play in quite a lot of teams as well. After Klee and Venti, I actually ended up getting zhongli, but this was actually by accident. You can see, I'm pretty sure this is the day 1 that he came out, which was basically the day where everyone was saying how terrible he was. Personally, I didn't really have an opinion on that, but the reason why I got him by accident is because I was actually pulling for Razor and Chongyun constellations, since I was using Klee on one side and then Razor on the other side. And then what you'll see is I actually ended up getting him C1, which was complete RNG. I think I remember getting it in maybe, yeah, you can see here, I randomly got his C1 on 22 pulls. And then this Constellation 2 I got during his rerun just because I was close to Pity and I was close to C2 and I thought I might as well. I also got this because I thought co-op was going to be more relevant than it is. You know, with this, you can give friends his shields as well if you're playing in co-op, and I thought it might be quite interesting. Obviously, that ended up being kind of useless, but I don't regret that. So I think this is my most common zhongli build. It's got a decent crit, decent energy recharge, decent HP. I usually use him with Favonius Lance just because I actually never leveled up Black Tassel, and I never actually thought it was that good anyway. I always thought even for a tank build you wanted Favonius Lance, even back in the day. Now I've got a pretty good Petra set, I think, personally, especially because how rare of a set this is. This could have rolled a lot better. You can see these crit damage rolls are all minimum rolls, I believe. But still getting an on-set goblet here is pretty nice. And I actually got this full set before it was available in the Strongbox. I actually farmed just for zhongli, which makes sense because, like I said, he was my third limited character I got, and I actually really did like him. I even used to play him as a physical DPS in the beginning as well. He replaced my Razor, and I used to use a zhongli physical DPS before he got buffed. Talents are alright. I never really cared too much about getting this crown. Obviously I have got like a 50k HP build in those very difficult events. I usually switch to some sort of tenacity build, maybe like triple HP tenacity build, but this is a set I usually use, especially because Petra makes him feel a little bit closer to Kazuha in terms of damage. Who did I end up getting after? Actually, I got Albedo during his rerun. I didn't get him when he first came out. The next character I got was Ganyu, and like a lot of people, she was actually the first limited female character to release, so there was a lot of hype around her, and like many people I saved up a lot of Primogems for her. So when I first got Ganyu, like everyone else, I thought she was so strong and so good, especially in the overworld. Back in the day, it was actually quite impressive how quick she was doing daily commissions, and even how quick she could defeat Storm Terror. I remember that was pretty impressive when she first came out, how fast she was doing it. Also, I never really got around to playing her much in freeze, mostly because it took me a long time to get Mona. So I usually played her in the melt teams when she first came out, usually with a team like this. This was how I usually played her. I've got Amos Bow with her, and this is my build. Wanderer's Troop. These are quite decent artifacts, nothing amazing to be honest. This is pretty good. I remember I used to strongbox this set quite a lot because there was only this and Noblesse when Inazuma came out. But I didn't manage to get an insane set for her. You can see this is not the highest amount of CV. I've got about Constellation 0. I never really thought about getting Constellations for her, because personally, in my opinion, it was either C0 or straight to C6. Obviously, I ain't doing that. I don't really spend money on Primogem packs in this game. Could get C1, that's pretty good, but I was never really interested. And she's actually one of my few mains that I never really got around to triple crowning her. But to be honest, I stopped using Ganyu regularly since I got Ayaka. And yeah, I only bring her out sometimes here and there. Her melt teams can be fun sometimes these days, but a team like this can be fun, getting some big damage per screenshot and some speed run. But like I said, to be honest, I don't really play Ganyu that much anymore. You'll see this as a pattern, to be honest. I usually get characters on the first day that they release. I don't really care about what other people say about characters. I like to form the opinions of the characters myself. After Ganyu, just like so many people, the hype for Hu Tao was insane. I'm pretty sure this is the first day that she came out as well. So Hu Tao, again, similar to Klee, even after all this time, still one of my favourite characters. You can see instant triple crown. She's very fun to play, at least for me personally. Although, to be honest, once I got her, I actually realised pretty quick that I really wanted C1 as well. Luckily, I've saved up enough Primogems to get that C1. But yeah, like I said, I realised pretty quick that the running out stamina was quite annoying, and I liked dash cancelling. Dash cancelling just looked way better than jump cancelling. That kind of looks ugly to me. So like, I'm pretty sure maybe 2 or 3 days after her banner came out, I realised I needed that C1. I never actually got Staff of Homer until Staff of Homer reran, I believe in 2.2. I used to use her on like Deathmatch until then, or Dragon's Bane. But yeah, you have to remember in 1.3 the weapon banners didn't have this thing here, so it was not guaranteed. So whoever got Staff of Homer back in the day, that was crazy. You know, you could put hundreds of pulls in that banner and never get it. So I didn't want to risk that. I was quite happy with my C1. So here's my Hu Tao artifacts. These are probably the best artifacts I have on any of my characters. This is like 260 CV with a lot of elemental mastery and HP. I'm quite confident this is one of the best Hu Taos you would see in the game period. This is my flower, all useful substats. This is my feather, all useful substats, full maximum crit rolls. This is my sands, probably one of the luckiest pieces you'll ever see in the game. Crimson Witch elemental mastery, 50 CV. Funny story about this feather and this sands, I actually had this when Hu Tao came out. So you gotta imagine at the time in 1.3 my Hu Tao build must have been way ahead of almost everyone else. This is the goblet I posted about recently. I actually randomly got this after doing the Abyss. You can see this actually would be an onset for Dia, which would be quite funny, but I don't have it yet. It works great for Hu Tao. And this is my circle. It's not amazing actually. This is the one piece that isn't actually that great. Maybe I can improve in the future, maybe not. To be honest, my other Crimson Witch pieces aren't even that good here. So yeah, this is my Hu Tao, pretty crazy, very happy with this. And I still play her a lot in either double hydro or playing on a VV team like this. This is quite fun as well. And yes, you don't need constellations on your yelan to play Hu Tao. I did skip Eula in 1.5. I also did skip Kazuha when he first came out. You can see I got him during his rerun. And that was because I was saving this whole time for Ayaka. So when Ayaka came out, that was the first time that they added this soft pity into the weapon banner. So like I said, I skipped 1.4, 1.5, 1.6. So this was the first time, the first character I decided to go for their signature weapon. This is both lucky and unlucky. You can see I failed the pity twice, but very early, which meant this was guaranteed. This was on the soft pity, 64. This is my current build for her. It's pretty good. It's actually not the best. This artifact here is amazing. This artifact here is pretty good as well because it's a 4-line start and it rolled all into energy recharge and crit damage. This is one of my other insane sands. This is almost 50 CV, I believe, with energy recharge. And these two actually aren't that great. These are the two pieces that kind of let me down for my Ayaka build. Although this is still a decent amount of crit rate and it's got ER. It's not the worst, but stuff like this is what makes my Ayaka build worse than my Hu Tao build. I never actually got anything crazy. This was actually pretty good before Shenhe came out. But now that Shenhe came out, Ayaka scales a bit better with crit damage, so this is better. This attack circuit also triple minimum rolled, which is quite unlucky. Could have been a 10-20, which would have been a lot nicer to look at. Obviously, you don't expect an insane amount of CV on Ayaka. She's not that kind of character because you do want some attack and some energy recharge. But my build's pretty good, it's alright. I actually had her on C0 for a while, but on her most recent rerun, I decided to go for her C2. And yep, another main character, so another triple crown. Ayaka is also one of my favourite characters. You can see I've got her event outfit too. And I play her in freeze teams, or I play her in mono cryo teams, something like this. Or in a freeze team with Mona as well, if I don't mind playing without a healer. The character I got next, it wasn't Raiden Shogun. I got Raiden Shogun on her rerun actually. So for Kokomi, to be honest, I never really cared about people saying that she sucked or that she was bad. I thought she had a nice design, I wanted to get her, and I also wanted to play her in freeze mostly, but at least she has some flexibility for other teams too. So for Kokomi's build, obviously she's got a ton of different builds that I'm gonna have to show you. But first of all, C0 and decent investment in these talents. Obviously the thing with Kokomi's damage is something like this makes up quite a bit of her damage, and something like this makes up quite a bit of her damage. So leveling up her talents isn't as good as other characters, which is why I never got around to triple crowning her. So obviously I don't have a signature weapon. This prototype amber and ocean hued clam set, I think is just her on-field DPS generalistic build. I spent quite a bit of time farming for these different ocean hue clan builds. You'll see later I've got some for elemental mastery as well. This healing bonus circuit is actually pretty good. I like this one here. If I was to play her in a Nilou team, what I would do is change it to sacrificial fragments. And then what I can also do, I can change it to this and then this. So this is my Ocean Hue Clam Nilou team hybrid build, which you'll see if I put it into a proper team like this.
Where are we dancing today?
The hybrid build will go to about 500 elemental mastery, which is pretty good, I think. Especially because I have healing bonus here, so the healing is good, and I have hydro bonus, so her on-field damage is pretty good. So I've got a Flower of Paradise Lost build. This would have over 1000 EM, and this has actually got a lot of energy recharge as well. Yeah, you can see 100 energy recharge all from artifacts in a triple EM build. This is quite crazy, I know. Obviously, this amount of ER is very overkill, but this HP is obviously very low. So I could use something like this maybe if I wanted more HP. I did have a Gilded Dream set on her too, but obviously that's just basically power crept by this set here. And then lastly, in a freeze team, obviously I would use TT, DS and Tenacity for its buffs. This is the build I have for that. It doesn't need to be insane substats, it's just whatever gets me the set. And yeah, those are my main Kokomi builds. She's very flexible, very versatile, and I play in a lot of different teams. Yeah, so I ended up getting Shenhe after Kokomi. I believe maybe Ito came out in between. Obviously I didn't get him. So Shenhe came and she completed the freeze team, which is pretty much the only teams I ever really played her in, but that's fine because I like her gameplay, I like her design as a character too. I like her story quest as well, if you guys have done that. I believe this is basically the only build I use her on really. So this is the build I use on her. It's got a lot of attack, a lot of energy recharge and some crit rate to proc Favonius Lance. 190 energy recharge and almost 3k attack. It's not the best Shenhe, but it's far from the worst. C0 and double crowned. Although C1 is really good, maybe I end up getting that in the future, who knows. Sometimes if I'm playing her on a team with another noblesse carrier, I can just stack attack pieces on her. Like I've got this 20 attack gladiators piece here. I've got another 20% attack Shimenawa set. So I do a mixed set of Shimenawas and gladiators, but usually I've got her on noblesse. And I don't have a signature weapon. I've never really been interested in it. So I skipped Yamika, skipped Ayato, and yeah, day one Yelan, I believe. This is my Yelan build. It's a decent amount of crit value. Obviously, I'm sure like most of you, a lot of your characters are fighting over emblem pieces, so she doesn't have the best pieces. Maybe this is her best piece, but it's an off piece. This flower is nice too, although this is quite low rolls on the crit rate here. You see 0 and double crowned. I usually use them for Favonius Bow, but I do have like a stringless build sometimes. Maybe with slightly higher energy recharge, or also I do have a sacrificial bow build too. Maybe I'll save up for a signature weapon in the future. I realised I haven't gone through some 4 stars yet, so whilst I'm on this team I might as well go through my xingqiu. I usually have him either on Favonius Sword or Sacrificial Sword, and these are quite decent artifacts. The flower, this is alright too. This is a 7 out of 7 crit rolled sands. And yeah, these pieces aren't amazing. Most of my 4-star characters, at least the old ones, are obviously C6, and he's also double crowned. Teams like this that I use are quite min-maxed, to be honest. Especially if I'm speedrunning with these sort of teams, I do have a lot of crowns. So after Yelan, I think I saved for quite a while. I ended up stockpiling a lot of Primo gems, and that was in order to get both Nilou and nahida, which I had planned to do. And what I also planned to do was get both of their signature weapons too. So this is my Nilou build I basically play the most these days, which is a Flower of Paradise Lost set build. And it's almost at 71k HP, that's my goal. You can see I got quite a lot of HP percent on these first 2 pieces, and then these last 3, just as much flat HP as possible. I've made a video on this set if you want to go watch that. Obviously, I also did farm a double HP percent mix set, which does reach to 74.4k HP. That gets this maximum 400%, but I've made a video on this in the past if you want to go watch that. You can either use this mix set or you can use a 4-piece Flower of Paradise Lost set. They both have their pros and cons, but basically can be pretty similar to each other. But one of the main advantages for me is that I can farm for both nilou and kokomi at the same time. Obviously nilou's at C0 and then quite low talent, since her talents don't really matter that much. And then my nahida build, I've got a signature weapon. It actually isn't that good. In a lot of teams you can use the Widsith instead. And it's got very similar performance to a signature weapon, but I didn't know that at the time. This is the build here. Obviously this is an overkill amount of energy recharge for most teams, but that's how I rolled my artifacts. This is what I've got. I'm quite happy with this. This is the on-set goblet with a decent amount of rolls here. But honestly, her artifacts aren't the best. Like, a piece like this is very disappointing, and I've been trying for ages to replace this, but I've never got any sort of luck in this domain at all. At least for Deepwood Memories, something like this is decent, but I would have liked to have more crit rather than the EM. And yeah, if anyone asks, the reason I use Dendro damage bonus on my nahida is because I've got this piece here. And my Elemental Masterpieces are just nowhere near as good, so that's why I use this. In a lot of our teams actually, you don't really need to care too much about getting this 1000 EM. It's not like if you're lower than 1000 EM, your nahida sucks. It honestly isn't that big of a deal. You want to get balanced stats, something like this. I've got her at C0, maybe I get C2 in the future because this makes a lot of teams more fun, especially with this crit damage. And I've got her a double crown. Maybe I triple crown her in the future actually, to be honest. So whilst I'm on this team, I might as well show my collei build, and she definitely does not use this amount of energy recharge. What the? I think I normally use this piece here. It's quite a decent build with crit and energy recharge. I've made videos on this before, but in teams like this, you don't need to stack Elemental Mastery on her, because a team like this is very controlled and she doesn't do that much reactions. Emblem is actually her best set in Bloom teams. And yeah, these are my pieces. Obviously, I've got better pieces like this, but this is on my raiden. So yeah, she doesn't use my best emblem pieces, but these are good enough for collei. And I've only got her on C3, which is quite annoying. I really want to get her to at least C4 for this team buff, if not this C6, which is really good. And her talents are quite high as well. I really want to get collei constellations, shinobu constellations. I really want to get her a C2, kirara. But aside from these newer characters, like I'll show you, basically all my other 4-star characters are C6. Even if I don't use them, I've got her at C6. Oh yeah, also Faruzan, I want to get her on C6, but I don't even use her at the moment because I don't use her animo DPS. So I've got Raiden as well. She's another one of my favourite characters in the game. I like her English voice actor and her playstyle. To be honest, I would like her to get a new skin in the future, hopefully. Maybe the kimono one that was in her trailer. I've got her on the catch. I don't have her signature weapon, but I have her on C2. Obviously, this isn't necessary, but this is what I wanted to get. These are artifacts, 220 CV. Honestly, you'll see my emblem luck isn't the best. Like, a piece like this is very nice. A piece like this is very nice. But I don't actually have great electro goblets. Like you see here, all my off pieces aren't even that great. This circuit's alright, I guess, with 2 rolls in crit damage and 1 energy recharge. And she's double crowned, obviously, because this talent is pretty useless. I like playing her in hyper carry, which means I level up my kujou Sara. She is also double crowned. This is my Sara's build. It's not the best crit ratio, but it's a lot of crit damage and energy recharge, which I don't mind. This is quite a nice off piece, to be honest. This is one of my oldest pieces of my account. These are artifacts. This piece here is actually very nice. I'm actually quite lucky with my emblem pieces. You can see something like this, 6 rolls in that, 6 rolls in this, 6 rolls in that, and energy recharge. This also has 6 rolls. So for emblem stands, I'm actually quite lucky in. Except for something like this. This, you will notice, it basically only has 3 rolls, but it's plus 20, which basically means I think this is all rolled in crit rate, but it's all minimum rolls, I believe. Her goblet isn't that good, and her circlet isn't that good. C6, obviously. And here's my Kazuha build. 1000 EM, 150 energy recharge. I've got Freedom Sworn, but sometimes I use a Xiphos on him, sometimes I use Sack Sword or Fav. It just depends on the team and the content. Looking here, I actually got Freedom Sworn on my first soft pity on his banner, which is pretty lucky. And also you can see I lost the 50-50 on Kazuha's banner, but I got him 1 pull after. Here's his artifacts. They're not the best, but they're not the worst. Something like this is very good, with a lot of elemental mastery and energy recharge. But this could have higher elemental mastery. This is just whatever. This has a lot of attack, but it doesn't need a lot of attack like that. I know if I change this build around, I can get closer to 160 or 170 energy recharge. Maybe something like this, which is 166 with Freedom Sworn still, but I've got him at C0. I never really cared too much to go for his C2. And I've got his talents quite decently. Maybe I triple crown him in the future. You might think that's useless on Kazuha, but because I use him so much in so many different teams, even if it's just 1 or 2% extra damage, I use him a lot, so maybe that can be worth it for me. Also, if someone asks why his skill is the highest, I know some calcs can say his burst is the strongest talent, but there's a lot of teams I use him in where I don't actually need to use his burst. But you always use his skill, so that's why I leveled it up slightly higher. And maybe I'll crown his skill first too. So I believe after that, I pretty much skipped a lot of 5 stars in Sumeru. I think a lot of people experienced this too, where a lot of these characters you weren't that interested in. This is my Bennett build with Noblesse. I use Skyward Blade, and obviously you stack energy recharge for this. C6 and 1 crown here. I do sometimes use him on an instructor's build. For example, if I'm playing him with Hu Tao. Albedo, to be honest, I got him during his rerun when this was the event weapon. To be honest, I don't really use him that much anymore, mostly because I never got Ito and I don't really like the current Geo teams. Hopefully they release some more fun Geo characters in the future so I can play Albedo more. These are my pieces on him. Obviously, as you can see, they're far from perfect. This circlet is pretty nice, I like that. And this goblet is pretty nice, I like that too. Actually, I remember before this Husk set came out, I had him on this, which was Defense Sands from Petra set with almost 10-20 piece here. Here's my Venti build. I build him with a crit build. Skyward Harp, obviously I got this on the standard banner at some point. I use him in a crit build mostly because that means he doesn't have to compete with artifacts with Sucrose and Kazuha, and I can just give him all the crit pieces. This has got 10 crit rate, but it's got some random rolls. Actually, I've got this piece which has got a lot of crit damage and elemental mastery, and it's actually got a better ratio here. So this is almost 200 CV with some elemental mastery and some energy recharge. It's pretty decent. Obviously, I have C0. I don't think anyone gets constellations on Venti. And 188. I've got a Jean, but I barely use her. I've got her at C4. Maybe if I get Zhao or Wanderer in the future, I could use Jean a lot, but like most people, I rarely use her these days. Here's my Keqing build. It's pretty good. Got Jade Cutter. 4-piece Thundering Fury. This piece is okay. It's whatever. This is a 7 out of 7 crit roll Thundering Fury attack sands, which I remember getting from the Strongbox on the day that Sumeru came out and on the day that we could Strongbox these pieces. But the rest of the pieces aren't that great, to be honest. I think this is just barely 200 CV. I've got a Constellation 1 and almost triple crowned. But yeah, the main issue with Keqing's artifacts is if you use Jade Cutter, she has this talent which increases her crit rate by 15%, which means it's so easy to overcap on crit rate. which means you need a lot of artifacts that have both crit damage and crit rate, but they get majority in crit damage, and that's obviously very tricky to do. I guess I have this Mona on TTDS in Tenacity. This is obviously a free support with a high amount of energy recharge. I've got her at C1, and yeah, single crowned because these other two talents are fairly useless. I've got a C6 Yunjin, which actually has some insane artifacts. On-set defense pieces like this with a lot of energy recharge. A flower with high energy recharge and high defense. But because I don't play Yoimiya or Wanderer, I barely get to play Yunjin these days. TTDS Sucrose, she kind of just has my spare VV pieces. C6 and low talents because it doesn't matter. Here's my Shinobu build. I'm actually quite happy with this. In a Hyper Bloom or Burgeon team like this, I usually use her with Xiphos. And luckily, I've got multiple Elemental Mastery pieces on this set, so I don't have to compete with Kokomi or Nilou's artifacts. Like I said, only C1. I would love to get more constellations on her. But she has almost 1000 EM. I've got a fischl build, which is okay. It's a mixed set. It's a mixed set with some of my leftover TF pieces and Shimanara's pieces. C6 and a crowned Oz, obviously. I don't really use Yaya that much anymore, but I've got a decent set for her. Kirara, I've got a max HP build on her, just using Sacrificial Sword and stacking as much HP as possible. Only got her at C0. I'd love to get C4, if not her C6 in the future. And her talents aren't that great. I've got a Thoma build that uses my leftover Gilded Dreams pieces. This is something I would sometimes use in Burgeon, although I think I use an energy recharge piece here instead. Obviously for these kinds of Thoma builds, I have a mix of HP, EM and ER as much as I can. My Xiangling, she's double crowned. To be honest, I use a lot of different artifacts on her. I don't really use one set in particular. I think at the moment she just has my leftover emblem pieces. Are there any characters that I don't have at the moment that I would like to get? I think out of all these older characters, I probably don't want them. I've got quite a lot of DPSs already, and I don't like pulling for every single character, to be honest. Maybe I would get Eula in the future. I like Eula's design and her playstyle, to be honest, personally. But I don't like that Hoyo don't really care about physical characters in teams, so I don't think I would get her until they add maybe a physical Farazan or some more physical characters that just make the playstyle more fun to play. Dia I would like to get from Standard Banner and build her. I don't know what team I would play her in though. Maybe I would like to get Baiju, use him in some Dendro teams, like maybe Nilou teams. Or actually I could get Baiju to play him in this team. I'm just looking at my Abyss record and yeah, basically getting 36 star every cycle. It's quite unfortunate that the record stops after a while. But like I said, I got my first 36 star in 1.2 and I get it ever since then. I don't think it's ever going to be an Abyss where I won't get 36 star. But you can see here I use quite a lot of different teams depending on my mood. Here's just an overview on all the weapons I have. But I got Ayaka's weapon, Hu Tao's weapon, Nilou's weapon, Nahida's weapon, Kazuha's. There's quite a decent amount of vertical investment here, but it's because personally I don't feel the need to get every single character. So I have spare primo gems in order to invest into my favourite characters. I guess we can also do an overview on some of my best artifacts. This pyro damage bonus goblet that I got recently. It's a Hu Tao piece or a Dia piece. Honestly, these elemental mastery pieces with a ton of energy recharge, I would say these kind of pieces are very lucky. Here's a Gilded Dream 7 out of 7 crit. This onset Dendro damage bonus piece I use on Nahida. This is quite a good sans for Raiden Shogun. Here, this is another 7 out of 7 piece. Onset Geo damage bonus double crit for zhongli. 7 out of 7 sans. I remember getting this before Eula came out. So unfortunately, Bloodstained Chivalry is outdated. But this is still a nice off piece. Crimson Witch is probably the domain I spent the most time farming in. You can see I've got a mix of decent luck with horrible luck here. But then I've got 7 out of 7 pieces here. This is one of my best pieces. This is also one of my oldest artifacts. I think I got this in 1.2, which is 7 out of 7 crit with max fold, elemental mastery and max fold attack. These two are alright, but not as good as that. I showed it in my Hutao build. This is 50 CV elemental mastery Crimson Witch piece. I would say probably one of the best artifacts you will ever see. This is another piece I think I got in 1.3 when Hutao came out. I've got a lot of pyro damage goblets that just roll terribly. You'll see all of these pieces that none of them rolled great. 7 out of 7 attack sands on Thundering Fury. This is very good for keqing. This is probably my highest CV circlet overall. My best piece on Ayaka, 7 out of 7 crit with an attack stat. I've actually got some other decent Blizzard Strayer pieces, but obviously none of them compare to this. This piece is pretty good as well. I remember I got attack right at the end. If I rolled one more crit, maybe this could have been 50 CV. I am fully stocked up on resources. You can see I've got enough XP books to level any new character I want. I think this is 25 million Mora, which means I don't think I'll ever get in trouble with Mora again. There's also so much resources stocked up throughout with like talent books, and even I think that can actually get me a level 90 weapon without having to farm anything extra. Also, I don't know if any of you experienced this as well, but I have so much of these now that I actually hit the cap, which is 9999. And what this means is that they don't actually let you claim rewards anymore. What I have to do now is I have to keep just destroying these. And there's basically nothing else I can do with this apart from level weapons that I don't need. I've got a lot of spare billets, basically a bunch of every single local specialty. I did max all my realms, but I don't really do much customization here. You can see this is my current abode. It's very bare bones. I kind of just collect the money here and just buy the weekly resources. That's it. Maybe I'll get into designing in the future. So I've got 779 achievements, and I usually do get 100% exploration in every area. I love the exploration in this game. However, to be honest, I still haven't got 100% in the newest region yet. I need to get around to that. So yeah, that was my account. Hopefully you got a good look at all my builds, all the characters I play. I feel like I've played basically every day since I started playing the game. So maybe 1,000 days in a row. Maybe I've missed 1 or 2 dailies and capped out on resin a few times, but I still enjoy the game. I still feel excited to play it every day. I love coming up with ideas to make videos, and I still really enjoy both exploration and combat in the game. I'm looking forward to Fontaine, and hopefully that can bring some more amazing updates into the game. Thanks for watching my account review.